Hey, what's the matter? I just can't do any bosses. You certainly look like you could. Look at your gear. You're even maxed in all the right places. What? I mean your stats. They're great. What do you think I meant? Oh, nothing. I just see everyone with tier 95 weapons, best in slot gear, and I'm just not there yet. I get what you mean. I used to feel the very same way myself. I'll tell you what though. Let me take your gear and try it out and see how far I can get with it. I won't change a thing about it, and I'll keep my setup within your level limit, all to show that it's possible. How's that sound? You know you sound like a scammer, right? Someone wise once told me these words, and I'll say them again to you. Just trust me. Alright, here you go. Welcome back to my channel, folks. I've seen a lot of posts, comments, and Reddit threads asking about what upgrades to get, and a lot of the times I see responses or advice about upgrading to really expensive items or unlocked. And this isn't necessarily bad advice, I provide it myself when I see fit, but I think a lot of the times we forget how much impact executing game mechanics properly provides for completing boss encounters. From what I see in most cases, people desire an upgrade that they cannot afford, but if they just had the ability to beat the boss that provides the upgrade they desire, they'll just have to keep beating that boss until it drops, right? RNG plays a factor, of course, but this is a method that I myself put into practice, and it has provided me with a lot of my upgrades that I have today. With all that being said, I'm going to take a very budget melee setup without any invention perks or augments and see how far we can get. We're going to go through a series of randomly picked bosses that gradually go up in difficulty, but also provide some form of decent drops that you could use to upgrade your gear. So as you can see, we have about 12 mil in gear here. The actual buy price of this was about 15 to 16 mil, so not too much different, but just wanted to be transparent. I just have Bandos gear. I upgraded to Laceration boots because they're 15 tiers higher and not much more expensive. We are using the tier 85 blades from Zamorak God Wars Dungeon 2, not Zamorak Lord of Chaos, but the Twin Furies. This is tier 90 accuracy and tier 80 damage. So this is a very, very good starter set of weapons. Warrior's Ring and the Saradomin's Whisper are just the first melee accessories that I thought of to buy. Using a skill cape, doesn't matter if it's 120 or 99, but seeing as how we're keeping it within maxed stats, you should have any available skill cape available to you. And then the pocket slot item is just almost a freebie. You complete Horror of the Deep, you can get this book, and then you can illuminate it by completing a quest in Al-Kharid that takes you to like the Abbey. I can't remember the exact name of the quest, but it lets you illuminate this book. And in short, the pages are cheap, and this will increase the affinity on your target whenever it procs. It'll also do damage, and the affinity rating will increase your hit chance on that target. So it'll be good for targets that we don't have 100% accuracy on, essentially. So this is going to be our setup. It is not going to be augmented, as I mentioned in the intro. Let's just see what we can do. There's one piece of gear that I forgot to mention that I'm going to buy, but I didn't buy, so I'm just going to make it. So it is an Elder Rune round shield. This is a tier 90 shield, which will be good for a shield swap. This is going to be something that if you don't like switching, I highly recommend that you challenge yourself to just incorporate a shield switch, because this is going to be something that allows us to do a lot more content than we think we can. Just being able to swap for resonance will save you so much food. I cannot stress this enough. Do your best to get used to the shield swap. Elder Rune is great because it's tier 90, so you get pretty much the full effectiveness of all the defensive abilities because they scale based on the tier of your shield, and this is a very cheap option. I think the mid GE is about 100k, but like I said, this is all within max stats, so if you have max stats, you can make this yourself with a couple Elder Rune bars. So the first boss I'm going to be doing is actually Bandos, the guy that drops the gear that we are using. This is a very good starter boss. The only con here is that if you don't have the Totem of Intimidation, like I don't, then you have to farm up the 40 KC. But if you're able to sustain here for any decent length of time without having to eat too much, then killing Bandos and his minions in the boss room will give you that KC. So you can just refresh your instance if you end up staying there longer than an hour. Alright, so I ended up getting my 40 KC. This actually took a little bit longer than I thought it would, but it was very safe. Didn't have to eat anything at all, and not really wasting any overload timers or anything of that sort. I also got a hard clue and 40 soul runes, which is, you know, not like game breaking or anything, but you know, hard clues are pretty quick to complete and offer fortunate components. So definitely not the worst time spent. I also forgot to mention that I'm going to be just using like turmoil, and I'm going to do my best to not use things like Greater Barge because those are pretty expensive upgrades. And I'm also like, despite this being something that is gear related, I want to try and keep like the monetary value into consideration. And Like Greater Barge is a very expensive upgrade. Greater Flurry is expensive as well. Greater Fury I can't really do anything about, but this is essentially the same as the base skill, just a little bit more convenient and a little bit more powerful. Like I said, not really much I can do about that, but that's what I'm working with. So I'm going to go ahead and start the instance, and we'll just see how this goes. Oh, wow. This actually hits a lot harder than I thought. Hold up. Why is my shield not going on? Oh, that's unfortunate. This is very scuffed. I got to equip the shield. I forgot that it degrades. So, all for an uncut sapphire. Oh, look at dude. Another sealed clue. That's sick. Also more supplies. That's awesome. Okay, now I can swap to my shield. All right, Bandos doable. Very doable. Oh, no way. And I actually get a drop. How cool is that, dude? Oh, sweet. That's cool. So yes, Bandos is doable and you get Bandos hilts, so heck yeah. The next up on this list is the Queen Black Dragon. This was a boss that was released before EOC even came about, and it used to be one of the hardest bosses in this game. But ever since EOC, it became kind of a mid-level boss with pretty decent, consistent rewards. It probably drops around 200 to 300k in loot per kill, and a lot of that is within Ceridome Brews, Super Restores, Dragon Bones, and Royal D'hide, which are all fairly common supplies used for skilling and PVM. So the value of each kill on this boss has been very consistent for years. It also drops the level 80 Royal Crossbow pieces, which are not extremely rare. They're somewhat common for a unique. And so if you're looking for a level 80 ranged bolt ammunition weapon, then this is a very good boss to start farming. It can also drop the Draconic Visage and some other cool unique rewards, but there's nothing super extravagant or super expensive. This is just a reliable boss to kill for just consistent GP. It'll also earn you Marks of War, and it will test your PVM ability a little bit because it does have some unique mechanics. So this is something that I would advise starting on, not only just for the consistent loot, but also just testing your PVM ability. Now, of course, you will need super anti-fires if you're going to do this without a shield, which I will be doing. And this does just have some mechanics like the firewalls that you have to look out for. You do kind of have to be careful with the Tortured Souls because they can stack you out, especially as the fight progresses. There'll be more that spawn, and they will spawn a typeless hit that goes on the ground. So if it spawns on you, it will do a lot of damage. So you can lure it onto the Tortured Souls and avoid the damage altogether. I probably could just, actually no, I don't want to say I can ignore those firewalls. That would probably destroy me. Oh, this is where a lot of them happen. There we go. Lure them on some ads like that. Then this is the last one, so I'm gonna just go for it. And just like that, Queen Black Dragon is done. Queen Black Dragon, doable? Very much so. And I didn't even have to use a shield swap. Let's see what we get. 81k. Blue Charms, Dragon Bones, Lantidime Seeds. Yeah, very good for consistent supplies, and the faster you get, obviously the better it will be. This is a very consistent boss and very reliable because all the drops are pretty much similar value. Hey guys, real quick, I just wanted to mention that Jagex is currently holding finalist votes for the Golden Gnome Awards, and I'm currently nominated for 3 categories: the Best New Video Creator, Best New Streamer, as well as Best Video Creator. If you haven't cast any votes for any of your other favorite content creators, I would highly love any votes or any support that I could get for this Golden Gnome. As I mentioned in my previous videos, having a Golden Gnome is something that has been a big goal ever since I started content creation, so winning just one of these rewards would mean the world to me. So I provided a link to voting in the video description, and you can also subscribe while you're down there. Next up, we have Helwyr. Helwyr drops the tier 85 dual wield set, the Cywir Wand and Orb, as well as the components to make the tier 80 Anima Core Power armor set. Helwyr's drops did kind of get a nerf when they made the change from herb drops to seed drops. If you were to use those seed drops, and this does kind of apply to the previous clip with Queen Black Dragon, you can use those seed drops to then make Lantadimes, which you can then sell. It's obviously a different time investment, but with the way that farming works, it is something that you can do kind of passively. You spend a few moments planting the seeds, you spend a few moments gathering and replanting, so on and so forth. So that is kind of something that is good to keep in mind when you want to make more money. You can just use your resources as far as you can, essentially. Moving on from that topic, Helwyr, a lot of the value comes from the uniques now, but if you have maxed reputation, the drop rate for the uniques is not incredibly rare, but it's not incredibly common either. But if you were to roll on a unique drop table, then you could get some pretty good GP. So you can see I just resonance like one of the big hits there, and that'll make it so I can pretty much no food Helwyr here if I can get that down. Once he's done with his rampage, I will freedom to clear the bleed. And then once his minions come over here, I'm going to just flurry. This will work even if you have the base flurry. That would have worked better if they were standing closer to me. So we'll bleed. And like that, I got a nice chunky heal. I'm going to debilitate to reduce some of that damage. Then I'm going to freedom. Go back to that dual wield. I'm going to prayer flick a little bit. I'm really risking it here. There we go. It ended up working out. Was it worth this kill? For 6.9k? Not exactly. But Helwyr, doable. So Vindicta is the next boss that I am going to take on. This is a very similar difficulty to Helwyr, but the commons here I find more enjoyable because Dragon Bones can drop into amounts up to 1 million RSGP value. So I prefer to do Vindicta if I had to choose between the two. With this setup, I can pretty much just camp Soul Split. He's going to summon some Purple Fire here from Gorbek in just a moment. So I'm just going to move out of that. And then Gorbek is going to jump down, and Vindicta is going to jump on Gorbek's back. Now we have different mechanics. So I'm going to protect from melee the first hit. I'm going to res the ranged hit. And then I'm going to protect melee on this hit. They're going to fly away. And then there's going to be more smoke between my current location and wherever they land. So I'm just going to surge, and we're going to do the same thing. Melee, ranged, melee. And then she's going to fly, and we're going to do some magic stuff. They will come to you, so if you're in a safe spot and you don't want to move, then you can always just click around and wait for them to come over. Should be it. Oh, uncut diamond. Not worth this drop, but overall, is it doable? Yes. Now I want to take it up a little bit more, and we're going to take this to Elder God Wars dungeon, but we're going to start off with the Arch Glacor on 5 mechanic normal mode. So I brought a little bit of extra food just in case, because I've actually never done it with this current setup. I think I'll be fine though. So activate all my mechanics, enter, and let us see how this goes. All right, so we have the flurry as the first mechanic. So here you just got to make sure you pay attention to what mechanics Arch Glacor is doing. Whenever you see the green smoke, that is going to be ranged. And then no smoke, it is magic. Also, don't judge me for my rotation here. I'm just hitting buttons. I'm just focusing on the mechanics here for the most part. All right, now it looks like we have the beam. So this is where the shield's going to come in handy. On normal mode, all you have to do is anticipate, and then you can actually res because it's a single hit, and then I can swap off. And if you are missing any health, that should heal you up to full, even if you're all the way at 1 HP. All right, now we have the Glacites, so I'm going to do some AoEs here. This is where I would highly recommend bringing a 2H if you don't have one. That way you can do like Hurricane, or you could use Wake, and it should deal with those minions pretty quickly. Now it looks like we're going to get arms, so with arms, I am just going to target cycle and just kill the nearest one. Use thresholds here because you don't want to last too long within the smoke because the damage will build up pretty high. All right, now it looks like pillars. That is the only mechanic that has not happened in this rotation yet. Those are only going to be 2 pillars in normal mode. Just got to make sure that you run out of these. And now it looks like we're doing the flurry mechanic again, so it's good. Flurry is like a free DPS phase almost. All you got to do is focus on your prayer swaps, and with normal mode, all you have to worry about is range and magic. In hard mode, it'll incorporate melee, so you don't have to focus on a whole lot here. I'm going to set up some bleeds because we have pillars. There we go. And that is that. Slow kill? Yes. But possible? Definitely. And look at that. The common loot is as much as the Bandos Godsword hilt that we got earlier. Even better. One of those drops is a Banite Stone Spirit. I would highly recommend, out of everything I've shown so far, Arch Glacor. Even if you can't do all 5 mechanics, the common loot here from even just one mechanic is very, very good. Next up on the list with the Elder God Wars Dungeon 2 bosses that are PVM is Kerapac. I could mention Croesus, but we are doing this combat based, so Croesus is definitely a good option if you can do that. But Kerapac is also a very, very solid option. Now, if you are using the exact setup I'm using here with melee, then you do have to factor in that Kerapac is magic based, so you will be at a style disadvantage, but is still going to be doable, and his common drops here are large. Like he can commonly drop 1 mil at a time. This is, if you can do normal mode Kerapac, I highly recommend it. This would be something that you could easily gear yourself out with. A concern that might pop up is accuracy, but you don't have to worry about that so much with the Elder God Wars dungeon release, because all the bosses within this dungeon have a pretty forgiving accuracy check. So my setup, I don't think I should miss, and if I do miss, it's not going to be that often. So his tear right through you mechanic, I'm going to go ahead and just run right under him. I can do a channeled ability, and it'll keep me right here, and I avoid the cloud that comes out, and he's not attacking, but I can still attack him. So it'll allow me to heal up and still DPS him down. So here, I'm just going to make sure that I surge out of the way. Whenever you see him kind of move up a little bit in the sky, so he's in the sky, then he's going to wiggle. I can surge anytime from when he wiggles to when he actually jumps down. My goal here is to get him before the lightning goes down, but there is a chance that I'll miss that. What I'm going to do here is I could have just, oh, look at that, phased. So I could swap to shield and do something like reflect and debilitate. But now I have this special action key. So I'm going to go ahead and activate it now. And then when he does a special, run right under him. That was cheap. I used limitless. So I'm not going to do that going forward. But in other scenarios, just build up to a threshold and try and use a threshold before it ends. Also going to use the enhanced Excalibur. Highly recommend using this if you have it. So I didn't Zerk here because I wanted to not take so much damage. I'm probably going to have to prayer flick a little bit because his mage hits do hurt. But there's a lot of points in this fight where he's not attacking. So I'm able to just camp soul split as long as I avoid his other mechanics. All right, so we're going to get the triple lightning wall. This is where a lot of people will panic, but there's actually no need to panic here. So you see where it kind of intersects. I'm just going to go ahead and surge on through. I'm going to go ahead and res. I'm going to reflect the next hit that he does, and then I'm going to surge through this last. If you don't have double surge, then you can just barricade that last section, or you can debilitate Kerapac and reflect, and that'll help reduce the damage a lot as well. Or if none of those things work, then you can just run head on through the wall, and you'll take the minimum amount of hits that you possibly can. That'll probably be 2 hits per wall if you do that. All right, so now we're in the final phase. I'm going to go ahead and warp time, do a couple hits here. I'm going to use Devo and just camp Mage Prayer. And then since it refreshed, I have Devo up again. I'm going to prayer flick a little bit here so I can heal up. I'm going to debilitate, get some bleeds on there. I'm going to get a res. That was a nice, good res. And just like that, he is done. I tried to use as little food as possible because it is pretty, it's pretty intense there in the last part. If you're not familiar with Kerapac, he gets enraged and he does more damage. But it is very doable. You just got to juggle your defensives. I wasn't using my defensives too much, but if you are taking more damage, just make sure you use debilitate, use that res for a free heal every once in a while, and you should be just fine. So my next challenge here is going to be Araxxor. Not going to lie, I just did a run and I got like 7k away from the kill. So I'm just kind of cutting that out to save time in this video, but I'm also just trying to be transparent that this is not necessarily easy. So what I'm using is a Nihil, and I'm using this inventory setup, you know, still same gear and everything. I'm using the Vampirism aura. I would recommend maybe using a Brawler aura, or if you have it, the Zerk aura. If you're learning, maybe just kind of opt out of the Zerk aura because you will take more damage. You could also use a Yak instead. Now that might kind of make some people mauled a little bit, but having a more defensive setup in order to help you see mechanics and learn the mechanics is a way that I personally learn when I have to. Some other people will learn better when they just do it the hard way right out the gate. So I would also recommend not doing this with melee if you're trying to learn it, especially dual wield melee, unless you have a scythe, because scythe is a halberd and it makes P4 easier. We're doing this kind of the hard way with a budget setup, and a scythe is very expensive. And Lanikia Spear is not really an option because it's tier 75 accuracy, and this boss has a pretty decent accuracy check, which is why we're using a Nihil. Just wanted to be transparent about that, explain that, and I would also recommend not doing this on paths 1 and 2 or 1 and 3 if you're learning, because minion paths makes things a lot harder with damage intake and having to deal with the minions. Path 2 and 3 together is a lot easier because phase 2 is essentially free for the most part, especially if you take the darkness path. That's how I learned. Just wanted to be honest about all that stuff right up front, but let's go ahead and jump on into it and see if we can make it happen. So I'm going to start off with Burning Path 1 because I want to make sure that I deal with the spiders in this setup. I'm also using Irid Incense 6. I forgot to mention that because Rax does poison and he reduces poison timers, but he doesn't reduce Irid Incense 6 timers. So these are the ideal thing to set up. So right out the gate, Rax he'll use a special attack pretty early on. So you want to make sure you anticipate almost right at the beginning of the fight. But then from then on out, it is going to be 5 mechanics. There, I just rezzed one of the reflection hits because he did the web earlier than I anticipated because I was kind of explaining things. But that basically allowed me to heal all the way back up. So that is why shields are very beneficial. This is the 3rd auto attack. 4th, maybe 5th, I'm going to anticipate. And he does the swipe. Really, the only thing that you need to worry about anticipating or using freedom for in melee is the cocoon. And he can't do back-to-back special attacks in the first 2 phases. Okay, so we did the web. I'm pretty close to threshold, so I'm just going to go past the threshold to queue the 2nd phase. He's got leftover HP that we'll deal with in phase 3, but I want him to start spawning spiders. I'm not going to Zerk here because I don't want to take a lot of unnecessary damage. I am going to bleed here because he's going to send out some spiders first, almost every single time. So I'll be able to get the full duration of the bleeds off. And then he's going to spawn spiders next, ideally. And so when he does that, I'll Devo. And the way that the special spiders work is the first spawn, the special spider will spawn on... Unfortunate, he did the swipe. First special spider spawn will be on the 3rd spawn, if that makes sense. So I think he's going to do more eggs. Yep. He pretty much alternates eggs and special attacks in this phase, which is kind of annoying, kind of good in some cases. It depends. All right, let us hope he spawns spiders. All right, first set of spiders. The first spawn is going to be a normal minion, then a normal minion, and then it's going to be a special, which is the mirror back. This is the reason why we want to off Rax right away, because we don't want to get nuked. So I'm just going to go ahead and deal with all the special spiders. I am going to prioritize getting these eggs down because these are not fun to deal with. All right, the second spawn of spiders, hopefully. Cool. Now the special spider is going to be the 2nd spawn. So we got 1 and then mirror back. And that's how it'll always work. The first set of spiders will be the 3rd spawn is going to be the special. The 2nd set of spiders will have the 2nd spawn be the special spider. The 3rd spawn is going to be a special spider right away. So you definitely want to make sure you're not attacking Rax because it could be a mirror back. And then the last set is not going to have a special spider. I want to make sure that I deal with these things in this phase, if I'm newer especially, because in phase 4, if you don't deal with all the minions, he can spawn a mirror back in phase 4, which is really, really bad. It does not feel good to get that. I'm going to go ahead and enhance Excalibur here. And then I'm going to have him spawn this last set of spiders. All right, and there's no specials here, so I can like bleed Rax and then continue to deal with these guys. I am going to Devo though, because I just want to avoid all damage possible. And just be careful because now since he's not spawning spiders, he has a chance at like pulling you in with the swipe. Now I'm going to wait till he does his next special attack. It is web. So now I'm going to go ahead and move over to the final area. You might be tempted to use rejuvenation and just deplete all of your adrenaline for health, but I would recommend not doing that because having your adrenaline available is going to benefit you a lot more. Now we are on phase 3. Phase 3, he will have an increased attack rate. It's still going to be 5 attacks between his specials. Just be aware that you will have to anticipate earlier, so I would do it on maybe like the 2nd or 3rd auto attack. And he's going to spawn these special spiders. I'm going to go ahead and like debilitate to make sure that I take reduced damage. Didn't mean to do that. I'm going to go ahead and pop a res and then do an auto or do a hit. There we go. Oh, I can get some guaranteed healing. Now, since he just reflected, I'm going to go ahead and use all of my bleeds and flick Soul Split. Anticipated right before the cocoon, so I'm taking a minimal amount of damage. I'm going to go ahead and shield camp for a second, just to make this a little bit more sustainable. I'm going to get him close to threshold, and then I'm going to lure all the spiders on him. Because he will get enraged, and I don't want to deal with all that enraged damage while I'm depleting his health. All right, so he's getting close to threshold, so I'm going to go ahead and Devo and gather all these spiders. And it looks like he got rid of my Devo, so that sucks. I honestly did not know that he could do that. All right, I'm going to debilitate, and I'm going to reflect. I'm going to freedom. I don't know if it's going to be a cocoon. Yeah, it is. I'm going to res. Move out of the way. Give him a bleed. There we go. Now we are at phase 4. So you just really want to take your time with this if you're new, especially with melee, because there's a lot of damage that you can take here. And just try and use your defensives as much as possible. Now the goal with phase 4 is he's going to do special attacks while you get him down to 50%. So just be very, very careful here. You want to make sure that you can't melee, and then when you see him do a A magic attack is when you want to swap to protect from magic, essentially. You also got to be careful of the special attacks until you get him to 50k. I'm going to use Reflect and take a little bit of less damage here. And don't be ashamed if you need to use Barricade at all. I'm going to go ahead and Barricade here, and I can just camp Soul Split. That'll allow me to heal up a little bit, save some supplies, build up to a higher Adren. I'm going to go ahead and Res. There we go. Debilitate. All right, now here with the acid spawn, don't move around too much. Just focus on your prayer flicks. And then when you start taking some typeless damage, you just want to move one square over. Just like that. And you want to just chug some food while you're doing that. There you go. You should have the kill at that point. You don't want to move around too much with the acid because the more you move, the more it'll attack you. And 700k. Now, with that taking 10 minutes versus Kerapac taking 4 minutes, a very slow Kerapac, this is less loot, but Araxxor has the chance of dropping spider legs, which could help you get a scythe or get whatever you want, and those are worth about 300 mil. Araxxor also drops a lot of brew flasks, super restores. It can also drop overloads and onyxes. So Araxxor is not horrible to do, but it is another option if you wanted to go for some of the more big ticket items. So, what do you think? You know, I think I have some learning to do, but if I just take my time and make GP along the way, I should be able to afford some better upgrades and maybe figure out this whole invention thing. Hey, that's the spirit. And look, if you ever need some extra help, you can join my Discord and share a VOD of your gameplay. Myself and many other members of the community can give it a watch and give you some specific pointers to your gameplay. That way you're getting the most accurate advice possible for your experience. Just join via the link in the video description. You can also tune into my live streams as well as subscribe to the YouTube channel to check out my series content, where I have progression series content for all 3 combat styles. Thank you so much for the encouragement. What'd you say your name was again? Hey, anytime. I'm Rheyo, and I'll see you in my next video. Take care.